Hello, and welcome to this learning session for the Motor Industries SPA2 configuration software. Today we're looking at our SPA2 configuration software for the TPRG model. That's the temperature programmable input SPA2, site programmable alarm. That's what SPA stands for. 2 is the second generation of the SPA2, of the SPA. Anyhow, so today we were talking about the analog output tab. You can see my unit is running right now. It's measuring 81, almost 82 degrees here in my lab. Kind of a warm day in Southern California. So we'll talk about the analog output tab. So I'll skip over there now. And as usual, if I'm going to make any changes in the configuration software, be sure to stop the instrument from monitoring while you're making those changes, because you cannot change it while it's operating. All right, let's look at the features and options we have here on the analog output tab. Here to show the mode, you can either have a current output for your analog output, or you can have voltage. Either one, it's selectable with just the push of a button, and of course the wiring is different on the top, so you have to wire it correctly. Now it shows here my current process variable range is 32 to 212 degrees. That's how I have the input configured for this particular SPA2. And the output range, let me do a refresh here. I hit some buttons and it changes things. Here it comes. Okay, my output range is currently configured for 4 to 20 milliamps. And as you can see, you can change that if in your process you need it to be 0 to 20 milliamps, that's fine, or anything in between. If you wanted to go 12 to 20 milliamps, that's also acceptable. It depends on your application. I'll leave this one at 4 to 20. And if you go to voltage, of course, you have a range of from 0 to 10 volts that you can configure it for your analog output. Back here, right below here, we have a damping feature. If it's enabled, now you can add in seconds how much damping you want. That is in the case you have an input that rises or lowers extremely quickly. It doesn't happen so much in a temperature input unit as it may be if you have one of the higher level units where the input is 4 to 20 milliamps. But the way it works is the same. So if you have a large spike in the input here, and you say, well, I want to dampen that for 10 seconds. So if you go somehow from 32 to 212 degrees almost immediately, instead of your output slamming from 4 milliamps and going immediately up to 20 milliamps, in this case here, the damping of 10 seconds is enabled, so it'll take 10 seconds to make that rise up to 20 milliamps. Again, you don't see that too much as an issue with temperature input units as you would with milliamp input units. Okay, and down here we have the fail mode. This is what we are pointing out here is what you want the analog output to do in case of a failure. You can go high, which will go to 22 or 23.6 milliamps, low down to 3.6 milliamps, hold the last value, so if it failed when you were, say, at 12 milliamps, it'll stay there, or hold last, and then go high, and here you can define how many seconds you want it to hold before it goes high, or hold last then low. Okay, and any of these changes you make on this page, once you are done making the changes, you can hit the quick set button, and that will download the changes on this single page. It won't, if you were on other pages earlier, it will not download those. Only these on this page. So you can do the quick set. If you want to make sure if you did changes all along here and you want to save them, you can hit this down arrow button. That'll download all the changes that you made on, no matter what tab it was on. All right. So, okay, now let's also go over here and see some of these features here that are good for troubleshooting or maintenance. And this is if you have suspect wiring or long wiring or a lot of junctions in your wiring back to your DCS, you can trim things up a little bit and make them accurate. And here's the trimming features right here. So in this case, 4 to 20, that's 4 is my lower, 20 is my upper. So if I tell it to fix the output at low, it will then start transmitting steady 4 milliamps to your DCS. And on your DCS, you can have somebody there measuring the loop current. So if they're reading 4.1, you can input that there and just hit the trim button. And what that will do, it will adjust the output of the SPA2 to match what you're reading on the DCS. And you can do the same thing for the upper. And you can say, okay, transmit the upper, which is in this case 20 milliamps. And if they're reading 19.9, or because they're slightly off, you enter that there, and you say trim, and that'll adjust for that. Okay. And if you move the SPA2 to a different location, you might want to, well, first of all, make sure you unfix before you go back to work here, so you won't be sending out a steady 20 milliamps. But if you made a mistake and you want to start over, just hit reset, and that will put the original factory levels in there. And believe me, the factory levels are usually pretty accurate. This is only in the case if you have some faulty wiring or multiple junction box and your output is a little bit off. Usually you won't see that with current, but you can see it if you have a voltage output. You might drop some voltage across the back connections. Okay. And lastly, down the bottom here, you have an output test, and that's good. So you can give it any level you want. You want to output it at 12 milliamps and say fix. It'll send 12 milliamps to your DCS, and you can make sure your DCS is reading that correctly. And make sure you hit the unfix button so that you release it, and it'll be back to transmitting whatever's appropriate for your input level. So let's get started back up here. And of course, I think I've unfixed everything. Here's my output here. Right now is 8.45 milliamps, and that's a good indication there of how everything is working in this case. So your DCS should be reading something similar to that, and you know everything's okay. So that's it for the analog output tab. If you have any questions on any of these other tabs, there will be learning sessions available for them. Be sure to look for them. And again, this is for the TPRG version of the SPA2, the temperature programmable. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again.